G'day folks. There is so much sign in this patch of forest, well, huge area that I'm traversing at the moment, that it's ridiculous, and I can't possibly catalogue it all, photograph it all, and photos never do it justice anyway. I'm sure some of the sign that I'm looking at, some of the things are probably natural, but I trust my judgment, and I think that the majority of the stuff that I'm seeing is legitimate sign, purposefully made. Sorry, I've still got this bloody cough. What I'm doing in an area like this that's pretty thick, and there's no snakes or anything about, so I don't mind traipsing through the bush. I don't want to get lost. But what I do in an area like this, I'll show you actually what I do. I'll just draw a quick diagram. It's probably better to explain if I do that. Little mud map, here we go. Okay. So what I do is, say the track goes, track goes like this, and curves a bit, and goes straight a bit. What I'll do is, so I don't get completely sidetracked or lost basically, is I'll stick to the track, but I'll probe, or cut in through the bush, pencil stuff, cut in through the bush, and then I'll walk relatively parallel, well, probably more of an arc, and I'll cut back to the track. Then I'll cross the other side of the track, walk through the bush, looking at sign all the way, and noticing things, and I'll cut back to the track again. Walk a little bit further and then do the same thing, cut in. That way I kind of grid it, and when I see, if I can see through the bush to where the track might kind of do that, then I will cut through the arc, leave the track, cut straight through the arc from one side of the track to meet up with it on the other side of the bend. If it does the same ahead, a little reconnoitre, and then I'll cut through and meet up with the track again on the other side like that. So that way I cover a lot of ground. These patches of track here that I might miss on the way back, I'll stick to the track proper and purposefully to see if I've missed anything along the track sides. And then when I meet up with, say, a patch here that I know I've gone in that way, then I'll cut back this way and meet up with my old probe line of march. That way, yeah. So it's kind of how I do it. I cover heaps of ground. I make sure I see most of the bush and I don't get lost. And I stick to the track because I've been lost before and it's very disconcerting. Just quickly, it was back in the 90s. My fiance and I, and my fiance at the time, were part of a four-wheel drive group that her father was in. This is in Canberra on the ACT. I'm going this way too because there's a track up here that I want to reconnoitre and leads, I think, down into the swamp, and I want to check that area out. Anyway, the Imagine National Park in the ACT, we four-wheel drived into this area, and then we went for a big bushwalk, and to the top of this mountain where we had lunch, and lots of game around here. Look at the wallaby tracks there. Can you see the detail that they leave in the mud? You can actually see the skin pattern on the soles of their feet, on those great big pads. That's just a little swamp wallaby. You see the big toenail. You see the side toe here, little toenail there. Little guy. Little swampy, no doubt. Look at that beautiful little flower right there. Seriously, winter lasts about 5 minutes these days, eh? Spring already coming. Swampies eat just about anything too. Normal kangaroos, greys and that, they will eat, there's a big dog track there too. They eat grass like a gazelle, you know. Swampies will eat, they browse ferns, bushes, reeds, all that stuff. This is why there's so many of them in this area. And kangaroos have got the open ground, the swampies and the redneck wallabies. They've got all thick bush. They're all chunky little buggers too. Anyway, yeah, so we got to the top of this mountain. Pardon me getting sidetracked, doing the Billy Connolly thing there. We had an argument about something. She was a fiery Austrian. It didn't take much to get into an argument with her. We're top mates still. So anyway, she wandered off down the mountain. I wandered off to follow her. Her dad said, you better go and get her, bring her back. When we got back, after stuffing around and making peace again, all the other bushwalkers are gone. They'd gone down the other side of the mountain. Well, we crisscrossed the track up and down, up and down. How can we lose 20 people, you know? They'd gone another way. Anyway, we got basically lost. It started to get dark. Long story short, we were up there for the best part of 2 days. And I built a little humpy. It was pretty cold, but I was a smoker back then, so I had a cigarette lighter. We had fire. We made a little shelter on a creek, more of a burn really. There was choppers out looking for us, the Air Force, the police, the four-wheel drive club, the SES. We ended up walking our own way out of there, but the police met us on the, that's very interesting, the police met us on our way out. Very two purposeful scratches there. Could be toenails from a wallaby. Yeah, probably is. Hopping up this little slope and slipping. That's what I think that would be. Anyway, so that's why I don't really want to get lost. It had a happy ending, but so many times in the bush, and we were seriously lost, and we walked a long, long way. We walked actually until we were so exhausted. I pretty much figured that one more day and that would have done us in. Sorry about the wind too. It's on days like these. A bloke I used to know used to call this Yowie weather. His theory was that, and it makes perfect sense too, things like that use the wind and all the extra noise and storms and whatever as cover. It's a lot easier to hunt in. Things can't hear you coming. I was a really little kid when he used to say that, and I had no idea what a Yowie was. I just assumed that everything he said was gospel. Really defined track through there. Look at that. Game trail. But it's also a little nerve-wracking on days like this, because every so often there'll be a stick break or a branch will fall and crunch, and it puts the wind up you, pardon the pun. It really makes you stop and start. I'm thinking, well, which one of these noises isn't caused by the wind? Is something tracking me, following me? You see these here? They look like little handprints. That's exactly what they are. Kangaroo handprints. They're not dog tracks. There was a bit of rain a while ago. You can see all the ruts in the road are full up with mud. fill up with water. So because there's so much standing water around, until the sun belts out and dries all these up, all the game can get water wherever it likes at the moment, and doesn't have to concentrate on the creeks or water holes, which makes it more difficult, of course, for anything that is carnivorous and wants to hunt meat. Makes it harder for them. They've got to go further afield. They've got to change their tactics, and that's what our hairy mates will be doing at the moment. Yeah, I'm actually starting to think maybe that's not a handprint. That could be a dog track, and if it is, it's a bloody big one. I saw another feral dog the other day, about the size of a kelpie. Nasty bloody thing too. That's 5 wild dogs I've seen in this one area, and one dingo. Looked like a purebred dingo. If you bear with me a little bit longer while I'm looking for sign and taking you with me, because I haven't really sussed this area out very much myself, so yeah, they're dog tracks, sorry. So if I come across anything, you'll be the first one to see it as well. Well, you'll be the second one. I was talking about this bloke that called this kind of weather Yowie weather. Here's a story for you. It was the first time anyone had ever mentioned the word Yowie, or that I'd ever heard it before. They didn't have the little Yowie chocolates back then either. It was when I was a kid. So, minus the campfire, I'll give you a little campfire story. I hope this wind isn't interfering with the mic too much. If it does, I'll stop. Anyway, backstory. When I was a kid, about 9, 10, was about the same time my father, who had I hadn't seen for quite a while, he got his acts back together, and was allowed to, associate with his kids once again, and that was good. One of the things he used to do with us. One of the things I used to love doing with my father was going shooting. He used to take me and my older brother, and I, more little wallaby tracks, hunting. And he bought us each a little single shot 22. I still have mine. It was the Belgian rifle. It was made in 1911, so it's well over 100 years old now. He said if you couldn't hit something with one bullet, there's something wrong with you. So they were both little single shot 22s, and yeah, we learnt to conserve bullets, and so by the time I was 18, we were deadly with the rifle. Anyway, so he used to take us to this place called the Gorge, or we called it the Gorge. Jesus, this is really rutty. But it was way down past Marulan Way. It was also known as Big Hill, I think, or Hidden Valley at the time. Because if there's any tracks, this will be the place where they are. He used to, a couple of his mates would come with him on the, not rare occasions, quite often actually. And one of the blokes was a guy called Bruce Collins. I don't mind saying his name because I doubt very much he's got a social online presence. Not the sort of bloke. Oh, I've got a property. Got the back fence of a property down here. I'll keep going. Bruce Collins, yeah, he was my hero. He was a Sydney bloke, and he was an amazing bushman, rugged outdoorsy type, He was like a cross between Paul Hogan and, I don't know, Indiana Jones. That looks very specifically leaned there. It is. Okay, that's positive. This guy was amazing, and he was would have been a bit of a ladies' man too, I'd imagine. He looked like Bobby Plant from Led Zeppelin. And he was covered in scars. He had boar tusk wounds in him. He had he was missing an eye from an air rifle slug as a kid. This bloke used to hunt razorbacks from horseback using a lance, like homemade long spear pole weapons. Yeah, so he was a bit of a daredevil, bit of a thrill seeker. Okay, what have we got here? A poo of some sort. Dog. Fox or feral dog. So sometimes things will specifically place their scat on an object. Even just a little off the ground, it will get the scent. So it'll catch the wind better if it's off the ground. That's what that's done. It's either a fox looking for a mate or a feral dog marking its territory. That's interesting too. There's a bloke I spoke to a while back who reckons that there's certain Yowies in this huge area that will run with the dogs. So, okay, what was that? And it's not too far-fetched when you think of the Aboriginals' relationship with the early dingoes when they first came to this country, and mankind's relationship with the dog, you know, overall. God, there's a lot of wallaby tracks. Well, there's a lot of game around. That's good, and water. Anyway, so yeah, look, this guy Bruce, he was also a snake collector, herpetologist type. He'd been bitten by snakes, Australian venomous snakes, of course, so many times that he lost the sense of smell, which is apparently one of the things that can happen to you from constant dosing of venom, highly neurotoxic venom. You go blind, or, you know. Anyway, on this occasion that I'm speaking of, I'll cut to the chase. We were sitting around the campfire one night, and Bruce was telling us some more of his stories, you know, anecdotes and things that he'd seen and done. And he was telling us that in this very spot we were camped, which was a dry fork from a existent river that would flood, you know, when a river was in flood, it became an actual branch, but at this time it was dry, full of smooth river rocks and casuarinas growing all around it. And beautiful down in this gully. This place was so beautiful. Deep, steep green gullies and rivers that would freeze in the winter. And I never saw it snow there, but it used to ice up a lot. This track's getting extremely thin. Lots of lamandra. Coming up to the swampy areas, this is swamp rush as well. There's some New England club brush there. I'm still hearing the odd sound, but like I said, in this wind, I'm actually making it difficult for myself. Anyway, he was pointing out that he was down in this spot one night, one weekend with some mates, and in late afternoon on one particular day they were just plunking away doing some target shooting, which we always used to do. And it got dark so quick down there too. You didn't have much light in the afternoons for shooting, so you'd use a bit and then do some target shooting and spend the rest of the night sitting around the fire. They were target shooting one night, him and a couple of his mates, and some river rocks came throwing in towards their general direction, clacking, making massive sounds. You know, you can't throw a river rock on other river rocks without noticing. It's very loud, almost a metallic clack, isn't it? You know. They were shouting out to whoever was pelting these rocks to give it up. It was obvious they had guns. They would have been heard. You know, don't be a dickhead. Come into the camp. No one came in, and then they fired a few more shots. The next thing, at the back of their target range, a hairy man came bursting through the bush, very irate, He said it wasn't huge, but it was probably 2 of him in weight, and he was no little bloke. But very hairy, aggro thing, and his mate opened fire, and then he opened fire, and they dropped it before it got too close to them, and it went down. And yeah, they said that this mythical beast, you know, the first time they've actually seen one, they've killed it. And he'd heard stories about it before. His father was a bushie as well. Well, they'd shot the first one they'd ever seen, and it was, he said it was dead. There's a lot of branch breaks and a lot of game trails here. So they shit themselves basically. It was getting too dark. They dragged it just off. There you go. Have a look at that. That is a feral dog hunting a wallaby. That's a, oh, I've got to take a photo of that. That's brilliant. There's a big dog track right in the middle of 2 wallaby tracks, very small. Look, the wallaby tracks are so, let's put my hand there. Okay, so, often tiny little guy. Wouldn't last 5 seconds with a dog that big. You can tell it's a dog, of course. You know, that cross, that really distinct cross pattern there. Cats don't have that. Another one there. That's a smaller track. 2 dogs. Okay, big one, small one. Right on the trail of a wallaby. I wouldn't be surprised if I find a kill further up. Just a second, please. Oh, I'm going to take a photo of that. All right, so where was I? Yeah, so they shit themselves. He said the 3 of them, it took 3 of them just to drag this thing. They couldn't lift it. They dragged it out of the riverbed into the casuarina wood on the side of the riverbed. They went, they made, you know, lit a fire. They probably drank themselves to sleep that night, although I'm pretty sure they would have had one of them at least keeping watch that night. They decided to piss off first thing in the morning. They broke their camp and they went to take one more look at the body of the Yowie, and it was gone. He just said it wasn't there anymore. They hadn't heard anything. They hadn't heard, you know, the approach of anything large to come and get it or anything like that. He said it was just gone. I can't remember whether he said there was any blood or anything like that, and I'm sure there's massive gaps of detail in this story because, well, it was 40 years ago. So, okay, I was expecting this to curve right around that way down into the swamp, and it's not. Instead it's breaking off and going uphill into the sclerophyll again. Some of these trail side breaks are quite old, but also there's no sign of termite damage or grubs or anything in most of the breaks that I'm seeing. They just snapped. Clean snaps in a healthy tree. I'll tell you what else, it wasn't a person that did that. I'm getting the starting to work out particular individuals, and there's this in this area. I think I've got either an adolescent or a smaller female with a kid. That beautiful epiphytes up there. And the dead branch of that thing. Yeah, anyway, so I remember my dad going, yeah, good on you, mate. Don't scare the lads, or, you know. Now, if he wanted to, sometimes he used to tell us fanciful tales, yeah. You know, like, there was a creature he used to talk about called the side hill gouger that had one leg longer than the other because it always walking along the side of a hill. That was hilarious. And of course, you know, your old drop bears and all that sort of ha-ha fictitious animals that we tell the that we tell the tourists to look out for. But you know, you can't fool a kid. Well, you can, but you know, they're more astute than we give them credit for. That's interesting. You see that scratch there? I would say that's kangaroo, but why there? They don't hop sideways. And more here. That's a scrape there. I think this is a kill spot. I reckon this is where the dog's caught up with that wallaby. Bit of a struggle. Yeah, it's trying to get away and it's getting pulled sideways. Look at this broken stuff here. Something's got it. Look at these breaks here, look at this one. There, it's fairly fresh. Yeah, this is interesting. Like I was saying, I was pretty smart then, I'm pretty smart now. I knew when I was being bullshitted, even way back then. And he wouldn't have bothered. He was very good to me, this guy, and he taught me a lot about tracking and, you know, and just bushcraft, and I loved him. He was awesome. I'd love to know what he's up to these days, but there you go. More game trails. So, you know, why would he throw in one such a outrageous story? Why would he throw that in amongst all the truth stories and all the truth anecdotes that he had shared with us around many a campfire, and then just make up one? I remember, yeah, Dad looking at him, and he looked at my dad kind of with a frown, like, what are you talking about, Don? You know, like, I'm not trying to have a lend to the kids. I think my old man actually knew that he was telling the truth, and he might have been trying to disguise it for us. We weren't really scared anyway. We were stoked. So yeah, he wouldn't have made up just something so unbelievable, and he would have given us that wink, you know, and that smile with the story as well. He was telling us the truth. Him and his mate shot a yowie down there once. This is back in would have been probably the early 70s, I guess, for him. Cool story, eh? That was the first time I ever heard about a yowie. And you know, something just occurred to me as well about why would you throw in one bit of bullshit amongst all the truth. Well, as an example, there's a video I put up yonks ago on my channel. I think it's called Spirit or Flesh. More paws there. Where are they? Yeah, that's probably a kangaroo. There's out near Gibbon where I filmed all the Darawal carvings. Thousands of years old. The Darawal were the people of the area that I grew up in. They had a huge range all the way from sort of the north side of Botany Bay right down to sort of Lake Illawarra, and even further than that, sort of to the Shoalhaven. There's the Darug and the Jerinja further south than that. Anyway, amongst all these carvings of depictions of animals that they interacted with and hunted and lived with and among is the huge Yowie carving. I'm 99% convinced that is a depiction of a Yowie. No neck, massive, so it's about 8 foot tall, the carving. Huge feet, no neck, massive body. Beautiful trees here. Now, why would they throw in one depiction of something fictitious amongst all the non-fictitious things, you know. Well, they wouldn't. I just, no. And there's plenty of people that agree with me. People are more learned in the subject than I am. So anyway, that's why I believe Bruce's story. And that was the first time I ever heard of a Yowie. Now I've had the two very significant experiences that I had as an adult. Pardon me, life-changing experiences. And it's funny, you know, at the time I couldn't even recall that story as a kid. It's only very recently that that's come back to me. So it's nice to know that all those things actually stay on file in your brain somewhere, and you just got to access it. He wouldn't have made stuff up. He wouldn't have hoaxed me. In fact, what's all that about? Friggin' hoaxes. Can you think of a more self-deceiving, puerile, futile waste of people's time, space, and you know, than doing that? Than, well, these, you know, these pathetic 40-year-old fucktards, virgins, and sitting in their friggin' mum's spare room, figuring out computer viruses or you know, ways to fool themselves. They should have been drowned at birth, people like that. But honestly, I won't get started on that because I don't want to finish a cool tale on it. But you know, hoaxes, honestly, more dog tracks. There's a lot around here. It's only faint, but they jump out at me. Just bends and breaks everywhere. So much game. And you know, you don't have to go bush bashing. Like I said before, there is so much sign on the side of tracks and roads and stuff that I mean, you know, you've got to get out of your comfort zone, and if you really want to find some very cool stuff, you do actually have to go bashing through the bush sometimes to find the sign that is left just for them. And I don't think they make anything for us to notice. I think they're all interacting with each other. In fact, that's another cool thing I saw. I don't know where that was. Anyway, there was I've noticed on a couple of occasions green boughs, you know, green branches that haven't fallen off because they're rotten. They're obviously full of sap and quite healthy. And yes, sometimes, in fact a lot, cockatoos do that. They'll just sit there stripping leaves and chewing through branches. But these ones, ooh, okay, that was loud. Camera probably didn't pick that up. Something behind me. The green branches on the track or on trails, game paths and that. Interesting little tree lean, that one. They're always jammed up into a fork. Quite a big branch there. It didn't come from any of these trees, it's too big. These trees are too small. It's been placed there. Another one over there going the other direction. Little theory of mine about the green boughs. Oh, far out. Okay. Oh, the fire has been through here quite a while back. Certain Aboriginal people, tribes, mostly the ones sort of inlandish ones, if groups of people went into another tribe's domain or territory, and they went there to parley or to trade or whatever, they would take a green bough, like the green bough of friendship. They would carry leafy green boughs as a sign that they didn't have any evil intentions. They were there as friends, like a flag of truce. because they would have their spears and all that with them, and they might look quite, you know, daunting. So they would carry these branches with them. It's only a small theory, but it's possible that the Yowies might do the same, entering into a known territory of another clan. They might throw down a green branch. Just a theory. It's a long stretch of the bow, but you never know. Because I know these branches weren't chewed through by birds, and I know that they didn't fall off on their own. So something places them there. Next time I see one, I'll try and get some footage of it. Yeah, so very unknown territory. I really don't know where I am now. Just going to check my compass. I hope I haven't bored you to tears. I'm heading west. I don't want to head west. I'm going to go a little bit further and then turn around, go back. I hope I haven't bored you to tears, and I had the little fireside minus the fire story. It was interesting. I was hoping to find a little bit more sign to share with you. And probably as soon as I turn this camera off, things will start happening. I've got plenty of battery left. If that does happen, I'll make sure I grab it. That's a break and a twist. See the twist on that? This is old sign, but it shows that they've come through here. All right. I'll talk to you later. See ya. Bye, folks.